This is the Profit from Legal podcast. I'm your host, Noel Bagwell. Whether you've listened to the podcast from the first episode or you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. The Profit from Legal podcast is brought to you by Executive Legal Professionals, PLLC, also called Executive LP, an innovative virtual law firm based in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. At Executive LP, we work with businesses to transform their legal support from a cost center to a profit engine. And that's what we talk about on this podcast. Our semi-monthly regular episodes and frequent interviews with interesting professionals bring our audience of savvy entrepreneurs and business decision makers useful insights for getting the most out of their legal support. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll be right back after this brief commercial message. Welcome back to another episode of Profit from Legal. Today we've got another interview for you, and my guest is Kevin Valley. Kevin Valley is in the business of raising capital. Currently, he specializes in helping medium-sized businesses with annual revenues between $1 million to $25 million to attract the funding they need to scale. With over 12 years of experience in corporate and investment banking, Kevin has been featured as a panelist at a variety of local, regional, and international business events on entrepreneurship, business development, and private company investment. Not only is he a Chartered Business Valuator, Kevin is a partner at Aspire Fund Management, a private equity firm based in Trinidad, founder of Become Investible, and host of the Caribbean Power Lunch podcast. This podcast has been described as a critical source of knowledge and support for both young and established businesses alike within the Caribbean area. Kevin is passionate about business and the development of Caribbean entrepreneurs. He has always admired the power of businesses to change lives, create jobs, and create sustainable wealth. And one of his core values stems from the quote, "Life is a loan that you repay through your service to others." So we're just absolutely thrilled to have Kevin on the Profit from Legal podcast today. Welcome to the podcast, Kevin.
Hey, thanks a lot, Noel. Listen, I think you if the legal thing doesn't satisfy you enough, I think you have a strong background in voiceover acting. When you read all that intro, it's like, oh, it's smooth, man. Love that.
Sounding good, huh? Yeah, maybe I should put some gigs on Fiverr or something like that.
Yeah. Anything, whatever pays the bills.
I think I'll stick to legal for now, but I appreciate the kind words. So tell us why prioritizing a business's valuation and maximizing the value of a business is essential for small to medium business owners and decision makers.
Yeah, I mean, I love how you just kind of dive right into it, right? So it's really about, okay, on one end, so let's say you're not ready to sell your business, you're not ready to raise any capital or anything. You want to know how your business is performing, right? Or even if you're structuring your shareholders agreement, right? You're bringing on some new shares, you're bringing on some new shareholders or whatnot, bringing on some people to join your team, and you don't necessarily want to pay them in cash, you want to pay them in equity. You want to know, hey, what is their contribution worth? What is my business worth? What percent of my business should I give to these people? All right, so that's one. Another note, if you want to evaluate the performance of your business on, let's say on a year-to-year basis, now this is not mandatory, but you always want to know, hey, how much value did I create last year? Because it's one thing to look at, how much revenues you made or how much did your profit grow by. But at what level of risk did you introduce to the business to achieve that? See, and I could go on and on about this, right? But the valuation is a function of two main things: risk and growth. Growth is shown through, of course, you grow through your revenue and your profits, and the risk is shown through your business model, right? So how much? What's the cost? What's the cost of financing? What about your competitive advantage? How do your customers feel about you? The strength of your team. Do you have core skills on your team to produce your product or service? What makes your team special? You think about LeBron and the Cavs. Like, do you have a deep bench?
Right.
All right. And then also like your of course, Noel, you might love this, your corporate governance systems, right? How are you protecting your business from yourself, from you and your founders? right? So there's a number of business risk factors that you need to consider that evaluator especially considers when they determine the risk level of your business when conducting a valuation.
So what I'm hearing you say, or at least the way I'm applying this to profit from legal, is that if you had a lawyer on your team who or assisting your business with both lowering risk and building assets that help your company grow faster, add more value, connect, goods and services to your customers, that would directly positively influence the value of that business.
Oh, most definitely. And in addition to that, so now we're in a digital age, we're in a creative age, we're in a knowledge economy, where a lot of the businesses that are coming up now are based on our unique ideas, underpinned by the problems we want to solve, the big audacious problems we want to solve for a large number of people. But how we solve these problems is through the implementation of both science and creativity. So like entrepreneurship is really like an entrepreneurship and a creative, to me, is one and the same. To the extent, maybe the entrepreneur has a...
They both use the same parts of the brain, right? Like you're using both halves of your brain, the creative side, the analytical side. It's data, but it's also how you interpret the data, how you use the data, ways that you solve problems creatively.
Exactly, right? So you're creating all of this intellectual property. And this is one example. But are you protecting that intellectual property? Do you have a lawyer helping you manage your intellectual property portfolio? So your patents for your inventions, your trademarks, for your brand names and what have you. Or maybe even how are you protecting your trade secrets, Or like what makes your business, what's the secret source of your business? Like what makes your business that much more, again, competitive compared to the others in the industry. So yeah, a lawyer would definitely be able to help you advise and protect those assets. And people think that law is so unsexy or whatever, but like what a lawyer could do for your business.
Absolutely. And copyright eligible material as well. I mean, from websites to employee handbooks to, the trade publications that your business might produce or contribute to. I mean, all that copyright eligible material can be some of the most valuable intellectual property that you have. It's, anything, any kind of creative work, videos, images, infographics, all of that stuff is copyright eligible material. And those can be hugely valuable assets. But if you're not protecting them, then they're less valuable and they're not going to completely reach their full potential in contributing to the value of your business. When you have a lawyer helping you with managing risk on one side of the equation and adding to growth and protecting the assets you're building on the other side, those are, high risk and low growth means low value, but low risk and high growth means high value. So lawyers can directly pump the value of your business in a really big way. Well, when it comes to contributing to a higher business value, and we can kind of go away from business valuation per se, and you might even speak to this a little more holistically, like in a person's professional life generally, or to, your forte, your strength, of business valuation. What's the biggest mistake or challenge that you see SMBs experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that right off the bat. They are building businesses that and there are many different ways that this sounds like. So, Noel, tell me, have you ever heard somebody say, and you deal with SMBs as well, right? Have you ever heard somebody say, if I'm not in office, nothing's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right?
When the cat's away, the mice will play, that kind of thing. Yeah.
If I'm not there, those people will not know what the hell to do.
Right.
And sometimes people say this as a badge of honor, as a badge of pride. But that is a humongous business risk. That is a humongous risk, especially if you're talking about trying to raise capital or trying to become investable. Because as an investor, I'm looking at you and you're telling me that your business relies on you. Your business needs you. So I'm thinking, so what if you want to take a vacation? What if, God forbid, something happens to you? What's going to happen with my money? What's going to happen with my investment?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. And of course, it wouldn't make sense for me to just identify a problem without such a suggestion of how to solve it, right? So I think it's really about from the start, right? When even when it comes to hiring, you're hiring your first employee, you're hiring people to join your team or whatnot. You want to make sure that your HR strategy, your hiring strategy, your onboarding strategy is in alignment with your business strategy. So a lot of small businesses, they want to hire their nephew, their cousin, their best friend, because, you know, they're right there and you think you could trust them and everything. But,
or pay them less.
And pay them less, right? Exactly, right? You could, you could get them to work harder for less, right? But are they really the right people for your team, right?
Usually not. Usually not. Usually nepotism, it does more harm than good.
Exactly. So you want to make sure that when you're hiring people that are both not only a fit on the technical side, okay, they have the skills to deliver this product or service, but also they're also a fit on the cultural side, on the soft side. Because I'm sure you worked in companies now where you have a star performer, but the personality is just toxic. And that toxicity, it affects the media department, and it could also permeate through the organization if the organization is heavily reliant on that person, right?
Yeah, and it's the cognitive side too. I mean, you have the capability side of things, you have the chemistry side of things, you know, personality, are they a good fit? But then you also have the cognitive approach. Is the way they go about solving problems and getting tasks done compatible with the way you go about solving problems and getting tasks done? And the folks over at Kolbe.com, you know, Kolbe Wisdom and all that, they do the Kolbe A index, and they talk about the cognitive approach. So what you're talking about, you know, everyone knows you've got to have the right person in the right job in terms of capability. They have to be able to get the job done. And you're talking about chemistry. They have to fit with your culture as well. And that's a wonderful, completely correct point. But in addition to that, it's also, do they go about working in the same mode? Do they have the same MO as you do? Or do they have one that's ideal for the job at least?
Exactly. And all right, so let's say that you do hire right? But that's not enough. That's not enough. Again, you're a small business. You want to make sure that, all right, so I'm just kind of backtrack for a second. So as a business that's heavily reliant on you is reliant on the information and the systems and the knowledge and everything that's pretty much in your head. What you want to do is try to unpack what's in your head and get that knowledge distributed throughout the organization. All right. So to do that, you hired good people who are ambitious, who mean well, and are in line with your mission, vision, and purpose for the organization. Okay. So how are you measuring their performance? How are you assessing their performance other than just looking at their last deliverable? Right. So you need to develop a system for constantly training them, as well as, again, having regular performance assessments, and then, you know, you determine, okay, how do I close these gaps in where you are and where I want you to be? And from there, you have to think about how are you working with your senior management, your leadership team. Because what I've seen a lot of small and medium-sized companies, probably even closer to like the lower middle market, like those making between 1 million and 25 million US per year, they have some level of traction and everything. You see, like, it's, again, very, very much reliant on the CEO. And it's like the leadership team, they're almost afraid because it's been embedded in them. They're afraid to make decisions without the CEO. So any big decisions come in and say, okay, well, let's wait for he or she to approve that before you go forward. But what that causes is a lot of stick. Or another way it looks a little more indirect is, let's say you have a big client. You have a big client you want to meet with, right? You want to close a deal. And that client says, okay, so where's the CEO? No, the CEO needs to be in this meeting. But the CEO does not need to be in the meeting, though. The CEO does not need to be in that meeting. And I've seen it with my very own eyes. All right. The CEO does not need to be in that meeting. So what those symptoms reflect is a lack of autonomy being given to your leadership team. All right. And if you don't give it autonomy to your leadership team, how is that knowledge going to pass down to their staff? Right. So all of that is causing bottlenecks in your distribution, your client, let's say client delivery. Right.
Yeah. And they see themselves as essential, right? They say nothing would get done if I weren't here. I'm essential. And that makes you feel good. But there's being essential, and then there's being the bottleneck, as you point out. It's the bottleneck that's bad. The trick to being a good leader is being essential without becoming a bottleneck, right?
Exactly. And I mean, and just the last thing while we're on this point. All right. So we spoke about the employees that you hire. We spoke about ongoing training. We spoke about the autonomy for the leadership team. But what about succession planning? Right? Because a successful business or investable business is generational. It's not just what happens in the next 5-10 years. It happens in the next 20-30 years. Right? The original founder of Coca-Cola is probably no longer in the business, you know?
No, he's dead. He's been dead for like decades.
Steve Jobs has been dead for almost 10 years now. Apple is still going, right? So you need to have a strategy for succession planning. Mm-hmm. You need to have a real succession plan coming in there. I mean, and you may need to work with a consultant for this, or you may need to work with somebody who specializes in this. But all of these things are the things that you want to put in place to make sure that your business could survive without you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Being able to be bigger than just the founder is the difference between, the very small, sort of struggling boutique business and a bigger sort of performance based business. And Daniel Priestley wrote that wonderful, great book, 24 Assets. And he was talking about building something that has objective value. And in 24 Assets, he breaks down basically all the categories of assets and different types of assets that a small business should build if they want to leapfrog from the lifestyle business or struggling boutique level of the entrepreneur journey up to a performance-based enterprise. And I think that's the kind of transition you're talking about, right? When you're talking about becoming investable, very few people want to invest in a lifestyle business because it's so tied to just the people who are, you've got a leadership team of about 4 and then all their support staff. But, it's when you double the size of that leadership team to about 8 and you really start building a ton of objectively valuable assets that the business becomes attractive to investors.
Yeah. I mean, so in a sense, yeah. But all right. So when I think about a lifestyle business, it's not so much because especially as tech is so prevalent now, right?
That's true.
Are doing so much in a very small staff count. I think it's more about scalability. So
yeah.
A lifestyle business, the business that provides enough income for me, for you, we can live a nice, lavish lifestyle, but it's not going to generate a return for an investor, outside investors. So it's not like an investor is going to put his or her money in and double their money in 4 to 5 years, as a lot of private investors want to. So the performance business you're describing can do that. So I think if you leverage tech and partnerships and all of these things enough, it's possible to build an investable business or performance business. I like to use them interchangeably. You could build that level of business with a small footprint, with a small team.
Yeah. And that, I mean, for a lot of people, that's the goal, right? I mean, it's more goods and services to more people at lower cost. And, team, your overhead, you definitely want to invest strongly there, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a huge number of people on your team. It just means the few people that you have on your team are at the top of their game. They're absolutely crucial. And, they get you where you're going. So can you, and I know that your business probably involves a lot of confidentiality, just like the legal field does, but I don't want you to violate any confidentiality or anything, but can you kind of help tie all these principles to a concrete story, something from your experience as a business valuator that really throws all of this into stark relief, like either a success story or maybe a cautionary tale?
Okay. All right. So it might not be a direct example of succession planning. I think we beat succession planning to death a little bit.
Yeah, not succession planning, but I mean, just the principles here of focusing on the importance, like a story of someone who really did it right and transformational good that came out of focusing on improving business valuation.
Okay. So, all right, I'll give you a success story. So there's one company that I used to work with. They're in, I don't even want to say the, but let's just say that their business is pretty much to generate contracts from high quality corporates. So not necessarily like governments or so, but from like high quality corporates, and they provide services to these corporates on a contractual basis that goes from anywhere from 5 to 10 years, right? So that locks in that guaranteed cash flow. I'm just trying to say, what can I say? What can I not say? All right. So this company has been able to not own, all right, so to manage their customer service to their clients, they collect a lot of data from each interaction, and they're able to leverage this data to improve their customer service, right? So another mistake I see a lot of companies making is that they don't really track their customers' feedback. They don't really track their customer insights. How do customers feel about them, right? Because at the first level, they haven't really identified their target customer. There's three criteria that I would say to identify a target customer. First one being who can you create the most amount of value for, but the second one being who do you like working with, and thirdly, who can afford to pay you a premium. So once you've identified that, it's really to monitor how they feel about you, because your customers is your customers are your revenue line, right? That's how you make your money. You don't have customers, you pretty much don't have a business.
No, take your time with it. We can fix this all in post.
All right. So you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So we had another client that was getting ready to raise capital, and they were saying like, how great their customers feel about them on everything. But when you go on Facebook and look at their customer reviews, you see, 1 star here, 2 star there, and that sort of thing. And so there's that sort of dichotomy is scary, because again, as an investor, you look at any future, say, all right, how sure is this money? But the successful customer, again, you have contracts tied in, you literally see testimonials coming from the customers and everything. So it's really to get everything documented so you could present that kind of credible case, so that you have a credible case when approaching investors. So meaning with investors, credibility and proof in the pudding is everything.
Absolutely. Proof in the pudding is everything. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, even for us with Profit from Legal. We're talking about legal key performance indicators with our clients, looking at that kind of data, that kind of feedback, but not so much from the customer service front, although there is that element of it. We look at that as well. But mostly looking at how your lawyer is contributing to the profitability of your business. This is something that can be measured. We can measure how your lawyer is reducing risk. We can measure how your lawyer is contributing to asset creation. There are metrics for this.
How do you measure it?
How do we measure it? So we look at the specific types of functions that lawyers are doing in the business. So how many complaints have they helped to not suppress, that's the wrong word, but address in a way that has a positive outcome for the client. And you can look year over year, like we had this number of complaints, and you might say, last year we had 50 complaints from customers, just to pull a number out of the air, right? 50 complaints from customers. But this year, in addition to having our legal team guide our customer service staff on how to resolve each of those complaints, we also had specialized training that looked at the content of the complaints, that looked at the communication that we have with our customers that may have been setting the wrong expectation, or whatever the problem was that generated the complaints. And so we have our legal team come in and say, if you improve your communication here, if you use this language there, if you follow this dispute resolution process on this side, then overall, both the number of complaints and the result of positive outcomes for the business, the number of complaints goes down, the positive outcomes go up. And because of legal's involvement in the business, your risk goes down and your customers are happy. You have more repeat customers, and you can track all those things. It's like, what is the legal doing with your customer service department? You can track it on different dimensions. How are they working with customer service? How are they working with sales? How are they working with marketing, HR, accounting? Every dimension of the business legal has something to do. And if you look at like all of the assets that Daniel Priestley talks about in 24 assets, if you look at all the categories of those assets and the specific ones that he mentions, a lawyer has something to do with either the creation or the protection of each one of those assets. And if we're talking about growing the value of the business, I mean, then all you have to do is measure what the lawyer is doing, either the quantity or the quality. You can develop your own internal quality rating scale, and you develop these legal key performance indicators, these legal metrics for measuring the lawyer's impact on your business. And you score them all. And the composite score of all of that is what we call the legal profitability score. So you can see this play out a little bit in kind of a microcosm, because we wanted to make it pretty simple and easy for people to engage with in a tactile way. If you take our legal profitability scorecard. So I think you took the legal profitability scorecard, right? You've been through that. Did you take it?
I know I looked at it. Did I take it? Can't recall.
So if you go through, I think you started it, but you might not have finished it. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit. Sorry about that. But if you go through the entire legal profitability scorecard, hint, hint, wink, wink, then you'll see the types of questions that we ask, the things that lawyers do in order to contribute to your legal profitability. And certainly the legal profitability scorecard doesn't represent a comprehensive list of all the things that lawyers do, but it's like sort of the high level, hit the headlines type of things that lawyers do. Are you talking to your lawyer on a regular basis about this? Are you using your lawyer for this kind of a service? Are you managing regulatory compliance? And then we have a whole section, 10 of the questions in the legal profitability scorecard are all, we call it legal sharpshooting questions. They're all specifically about specific KPIs, key performance indicators. So this is definitely a thing that lawyers can do. And it's also a thing that, virtually every other part of your business can do. And some people talk about using SMART goals, and that's part of it. But I don't feel like that really goes the full distance. The specific, measurable, all of the SMART goals, right? Time-based is the T. I off the top of my head, I'm not clear. I can fix this in post too, but I'm just going to go back and specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. That's SMART goals. So people start with those, and that's really great. But I don't feel like just setting SMART goals and achieving them on a regular basis and tracking wins and losses is the be-all, end-all. And I don't think anybody really would say that. I think you need to set specific metrics for success in your business, and then let your numbers be your guide. So that's really great feedback. Thank you for sharing the story, and it's a really great discussion. But a final little question for you as we head into the home stretch of our interview here.
Sure.
What do you recommend that small to medium sized business owners? So we're really talking about 10 million to 50 million in revenue, right? That window, that ideal window. So what do you recommend that those folks do? If they don't feel like they're reaching their full value potential, what do you think that they should do to change in directionally correct ways?
Okay. So again, I'm all about focusing on fundamentals, right? So, I guess I could recap, and I could even give you a nice little mnemonic.
Great. Yeah. Give us that. Yeah. Let's have the mnemonic.
All right. So we have, Become Investible. We have 6 metrics of investability. It's human resources, customer insights, competitive advantage, financial controls, financial data, corporate governance. No, all right, that's a lot. So,
yeah.
Here's
go through it a little bit slower. Yeah, we want to. Repetition is magic. It'll sink into our brains. What are those again? A little bit slower.
Right. So the mnemonic is happy customers, champion and favor fantastic companies. Right.
Happy customers, champion and favor fantastic companies.
There we go. All right. So the H. So human resources. Again, are you building the right team? That goes from onboarding all the way up to succession planning. Customer insights. Why do your customers choose you? So again, target customer profiling, monitoring that relationship, making sure that you have your key competitive advantage. Your key differentiator identified to your customers. Because a lot of people are solving customer problems in a different way. What makes you special? Competitive advantage. What makes your business a fortress? What sort of creates that moat in your business that other industry players can't permeate. So be it your IP protection that your lawyer will help you with, your strategic partnerships, maybe you have replicable processes or systems, or just kind of goes down to like your customer concentration. So to make sure that no particular customer comprises more than 10% of your revenues, so that they can't come and say, hey, well, I don't feel like paying that price anymore. What are you going to do? Right. And then on the other side, you have to look at your supplier concentration. Do you have options with suppliers so that they can squeeze you as well? All right. And then the next metric, financial controls. So we're at favor. So happy customers champion and favor. So do you know your numbers? Do you have people in your business who are monitoring your numbers on a regular basis? Because if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business and you're running blind. Financial data. So in order to know your numbers, are you in the habit of preparing financial statements in order to show to investors or to lenders or what have you? Do you have skin in the game? So do you have your own capital at risk, or if you're looking for a loan, do you have collateral that you can show the bank? Because investors and lenders need to show that their risk and your risk are aligned. That you have stuff at risk as well. And the last one, of course, corporate governance. Right? How strong is your company's internal management structure? How are you governing your board of directors, your management team? Do you have shareholder agreements? How are you managing conflicts of interest? The roles and responsibilities of your senior employees and your leadership team and your founding. So again, that's human resources. Are you building the right team? Customer insights. Why do your customers choose you? Competitive advantage. What makes your business a fortress? Financial controls. Do you know your numbers? Financial data. Are you ready to face investors? And corporate governance. How strong is your company's structure? Because happy customers champion and favor fantastic companies.
That's wonderful. That was such a great note to go out on. I really appreciate those insights. I mean, being able to talk to someone whose job it is to value businesses, to put a value on the business, and hear direct insights, direct from a professional like that, talking about this is what you can do to pump the value of your company up, to improve the valuation that you're going to get, whether it's for insurance purposes or investing purposes or business succession purposes, or maybe just to sell. Maybe it's time to, move to the Caribbean, right? You want to sell your company and move to a nice warm climate where the people are friendly and the food is good and the water's always crystal clear. I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that, right? So you're going to need to get the right valuation. We really appreciate you coming on, Kevin, to give us these insights. We'll make sure that links to all of your website and all of the different projects that you've got going on are in the show notes and the episode description. But even though we're going to have all of that there for people to reference, can you give us the best way to connect with you and how to get the most out of that initial interaction?
Sure. Okay, so you could either go on to kevinvalley.com. That's my name, kevinvalley.com. Or you could go to becomeinvestable.com and do our roundtable investability diagnosis or assessment. You could evaluate how investable your business is based on the 6 key metrics that I listed out. And failing that, you could just go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. Kevin Valley.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Again, it's just an honor and a privilege to have you on, and really appreciate all of your time today.
Thanks for having me, Noah.
That's all for this episode of the Profit from Legal podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Share it with your friends, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Profit from Legal podcast. That's all for me. I'm Noel Bagwell signing off. Have a great day.